Thanks for joining us at Soul Career. I'm Lysandra Ricketts, and today I'm chatting with John Matthews. John is a recent Harvard College graduate. He just graduated last week, and he has a really interesting story to share about how he's thinking about his soul career from very early in his working life. Thanks for joining us, John.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So I always like to start by asking you to tell me a little bit about your origin story. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? And how did you get to Harvard?
Well, I was born and raised in Kingston, Jamaica. And, I was raised here my entire life, all the way up through high school. And I actually wanted to be a medical doctor. So I ended up, enrolling at the University of the West Indies in their MBBS program, which is a Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery, and it just didn't feel right to me. So to the horror and dismay of my parents, I decided to, forego a full scholarship there, to take the risk and apply to colleges abroad. Didn't know, where I was going to get in, but, it all worked out for the best. And so now I'm here at Harvard and haven't looked back since.
Well, you just graduated.
Yes.
Okay, so you were at university here in Jamaica, and then you decided to apply in your first year for Harvard.
Yeah, so I basically withdrew myself from med school after the 2 weeks of orientation.
Oh, okay. Wow. So you knew very early that this wasn't the right thing for you.
Right.
So what did you want to be when you were growing up?
So for the majority of my time, I'd say I actually wanted to be a hotelier.
What?
I wanted to be a hotelier from, I want to say, grade 8 all the way through grade 11. And then I somehow hit my head and wanted to become a medical doctor, which is how I ended up applying to med school.
Did you hit your head, or did your parents kind of guide you in that direction?
No, my parents have always been very open. They've always wanted me to, follow my passions and do whatever I really felt was my calling. So it wasn't any pushing from them at all. I really just truly hit my head.
Okay, all right, cool. So now you've made it to Harvard, you're there, you're enjoying your time, I think. What did you decide to study while you were there?
I decided to study chemistry, and that was really due to just my passion for the subject. It was my favorite subject in high school, and then when I went to Harvard, I tried some intro courses, and I realized that the department was really small and tight-knit, and was people I wanted to surround myself with, and I had developed a close relationship with the department head. And so I decided, hey, you know what, let's go ahead with this, even though I was always cognizant of the fact that you don't need to study what you want to do.
Okay, fantastic. So you love chemistry, and that's what you decided to study.
Yes.
So when did you realize that there was something off on your career path?
So the funny thing about me is that even though I studied chemistry, I've always been what I'd say, half sciences, half business, ever since high school. And so all of my internships were in the field of business. And I really realized something was off when I, followed the prescribed track of, what success typically looks like at a place like Harvard, and went into management consulting my sophomore year. And I realized I liked the benefits of it. I liked the salary, of course. I liked the fancy dinners. But when it came to the work itself, I realized that I was always finding myself, looking at my watch, counting down until when I can go home and be rid of this. And so I made the mistake, because I realized that from my sophomore year, and I made the mistake of going back to another consulting firm my junior year. But that's when I really realized, enough is enough, and I don't want to start my career off like this.
Okay, so we have to unpack this a little bit because there's a lot going on in there.
Right.
So you were studying chemistry, but you did your internships during your summers in business and in management consulting.
Yes.
How did you make that leap?
So with management consulting, the leap wasn't that hard because, they really pride themselves on being analytical. And so those skills were developed a lot in chemistry. But, in high school, even though I studied the sciences, I also studied the business subjects as well. And so I always knew that for my life, I eventually saw myself going down that path, regardless of what I studied. And so it was really just a matter of me, making the case of why is it that me, a science student, wants to work in, their corporate environment?
Right.
And, as time went on, it got easier and easier because my freshman year, I did an internship at a bank back home in Jamaica. And so the more experience I racked up in business was the easier it became to convince them that I actually know what I'm doing.
Right. Okay, so let's try to tie all of this back to what you wanted to be when you were growing up, when you were very young, right? So you wanted to be a hotelier first.
Yes.
Then you made the switch into medicine. Then you studied chemistry at Harvard, and then you went into business for your internships, even though you were studying chemistry at Harvard.
Right.
So how do we make sense of all of this? What was your guiding kind of feeling that brought you through all of these different subjects?
So I guess for me, the guiding light, so to speak, was I always knew I was passionate about, like innovation and change. Mm-hmm. And so chemistry, like I studied that because it was a field that was on the forefront of that, dealing with all sorts of, new developments, whether it's, soft robotics or 3D printing, etc. And so I tried to find myself in professional environments that also were hinged upon innovation, so to speak. So my internship at the bank freshman year, that was in their innovation department, helping them to think about, new ways that they can do things such as like tap the unbanked, so to speak, or revolutionize their systems. And so that's how everything really like ties together. So on the educational front, it was really giving me, those hard skills that I could use to make an impact in the working world. And then on the extracurricular / professional front, that's where I really, dove deep into my love and passion for innovation.
Right, okay. And then if I go back in time to hotelier, why did you want to be a hotelier back then?
So, for why I wanted to be a hotelier, it's interesting. I always had a passion for, like the tourism industry. I think that also has to do with innovation as well. Mm-hmm. And so when I'd go to resorts, even though I loved them, I'd always find myself thinking about ways that, this can be improved, ways that like maybe, the positioning of the bar should be different to, be more, how would you say, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, I was thinking about ways that you could create a better experience for the hotel goers. And so for the longest while, my dream school was not Harvard. It was actually the Cornell School of Hotel Administration.
Okay, so that decision to leave the university here and go to Harvard, how long did it take for you to get in? Did you have a gap year?
I did.
Essentially. So tell me a little bit about that process.
Right. Yeah. So for the gap year, after deciding to withdraw from the University of the West Indies, I really decided to take this gap year to not only work on my applications, because at that point I hadn't done any sorts of standardized testing, hadn't written any essays, anything like that. So I did that, and then on the side I was also teaching, and then I, had some little passion projects on the side. So I started taking dance classes, for example. I helped my friend write a business plan for a bakery, and really just trying to make most of that time.
Okay, so that gap year, it sounds like you really honed your interest in business during that gap year.
Yes.
So even though you decided to study chemistry at Harvard, that business side of you was always there from then.
Always.
All right. So now we fast forward to management consulting and to you realizing that you were watching the clock and you weren't happy and you wanted something else that lit you up from the inside out.
Right.
So now you decided not to pursue management consulting anymore, but to start looking somewhere else. So what happened next?
So what happened next is I reached out to you, Lissandra, and you really helped me to realize that what I was doing, I was going down the wrong path, what I like to call the conveyor belt, so to speak. Yeah. And I wasn't really thinking about, the choices I was making. I was just going along this prescribed path of success. And I wasn't realizing that it was making me, very unhappy. And so after, going through the Soul Career course, I was really able to hone in on, not only what mattered to me, but able to find opportunities that also, resonated with what made me tick as a person. And so thereafter, I started, I started my launch into, finding the right opportunities, and I stumbled upon this opportunity where I'll be working for Unibail Rodamco Westfield.
Wait, you're fast forwarding too fast.
All right.
So what did you discover about yourself when you started asking yourself those questions about what really made you tick?
So the main discovery was that I realized that I really needed to have creativity in whatever I do to be happy. And so whether that's my job itself being creative or being in a creative environment. And that was really the key piece that was missing in all of the opportunities that I had taken upon myself in management consulting. They just focused strictly on the analytical.
That's right. Okay, so you found this about yourself and you started looking for jobs that would give you more creativity as you were doing it on the job.
Yes.
So what was that process like?
Yeah, it took a while. I tried a lot of different things, including, like some marketing roles, some sales positions, but another real barrier that was there is that I was going about the search the wrong way.
Okay.
And so one thing that I had was what you referenced as a chasing mindset. And so I would try to force fit myself into positions that, sounded right. And I would, try to do these things where I try to learn everything about the company and spit it back out to them in the interview and try to basically do a word dump, to show all of my knowledge about the company as if it was some sort of test or examination.
A lot of people do that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And that just was not working at all because, even though I knew a lot about the company, what these people are really trying to do is find the right fit.
Yeah.
And so eventually it took me a while, and I want to say somewhere around 4 months in the process, I decided that I was going to, take a step back and only apply to things that truly, ignited a fire within me, so to speak. Yeah. And so in about the end of the 5th month, that's when I found a position that was advertised through my on-campus recruiting program that really spoke to me. And as I, did more research and, read up on their website, literally everything I was reading, light bulbs were going off in my head. And this really just seemed like the actual perfect opportunity for me. And so what I did is, I got on the phone with the university relations manager and we just had a conversation for about half an hour. It didn't seem, very scripted, like me asking a bunch of, predefined questions. No, it was just a conversation that, flowed on and it was just very natural.
And I remember before you went into that interview, we had a conversation.
Yes.
Where we talked about that your personality just shines through when you just relax and have a conversation as a human being with the person on the other side of the table from you.
Right.
So then you just let go of all the memorization you did of your responses and just connected on a human level with the interviewer.
Yes.
And so what happened?
That's exactly what happened. And so, at the end of that conversation, the recruiter, was just like, oh, I should definitely keep in touch, reach out again if I have more questions. And I just left that conversation feeling like I had made a genuine connection and just felt very good about it. And so then I dropped my resume and, of course I was called for an interview. And funnily enough, it was a series of interviews, and the first interview that I had was with that same person who I had the conversation with.
Yeah.
And basically, as I walked in, he was like, we don't even need to have this. I feel like I already know everything that I need to know about you. And then thereafter, there were a series of, panel interviews, and those, surprisingly, even though it was, 3 executives within the company and me, it also just felt very natural. And because I had let go of, this stiff mindset that I had before, I was able to let my personality shine through. And the conversation flowed in such a way that I was using words that I never would have used in any interview before. For example, I remember in one of the questions, I was just like, as you can probably tell, I have a bougie side to me. And never in my life would I have imagined before that I would be using the word bougie in an interview. But I said it and, their faces lit up. They were smiling from ear to ear. And, they realized that, hey, this guy is the real deal. He's not putting on a facade for us.
And I just want to say here that it's not that he wasn't prepared. he still did a lot of interview prep, wrote down all his answers, used the STAR method, situation, task, action, results, everything. But after that preparation, then you just let it go and be a human being and have a natural conversation. So
right. To touch upon that, it was basically like before, the method that I would have used is, as I said, it was like an exam. I read this information and now I feel like I have to give it back to the interviewers within that time. But with your help, I was able to still, do that research, but have it as a kind of like database that I can tap into if necessary. But don't, unnaturally bring it up in conversation like, oh, look, I know this about your company and I know that.
Right. So how long did it take you from you started recruiting until you ended up getting an offer with this company? And we'll talk a little bit about that, but how long did this process take you?
So this entire process, I want to say, took about 8 months. It takes a long time to get a job.
To get a job in a industry or a role that you really love.
Yes.
You can get a job quicker if you don't care what you're doing. But if you care about what you're doing, it might take you a long time.
Right. And even with this company, I remember that whole initial conversation and the resume drop was in January. Then the first round of interviews was in February. And then the final round was in March, and didn't get my offer until like 1 week later in April. So even that was about a 4-month-long process with one company.
And actually that's quite normal, Companies don't like to be rushed when they're doing this kind of thing because it's much easier to hire than to fire. So you have to hire slowly and fire quickly. That's the old mantra in business, right? Yeah.
Right.
So tell me, you did your series of interviews and then you got an offer.
Yes.
What was that like after 8 months in the process?
It was just pure bliss and joy. And not only because I got an offer, but it was something that I genuinely felt was the right opportunity for me, something that I was truly excited about. And, I remember even when I was on the phone with the recruiter, the same recruiter who I initially, had reached out to, with the final round interview, which was with the top level executive who sits in France, he told me that immediately after the interview, the executive messaged him and was just like, it's a big fat yes. And so even just hearing that, just, confirmed, all along that it was mutual. Like, I liked them a lot, they liked me a lot, and it just felt like all of the hard work that I had put in over the past 8 months was like worth it. Waiting for the right opportunity, I would go back and do it again in a heartbeat. So
tell us what is it about this job that makes it your sole career?
Well, with this job, it really makes it my sole career for a lot of reasons. Like, one, it's a very creative company, so they're focused around innovation, and specifically innovation within the, shopping center sort of industry. And so what they really pride themselves on is moving away from typical retail and providing experiences. And if you remember from earlier in this interview when I said I wanted to be a hotelier, which is about, providing these luxury experiences for people, it's kind of the same function, but in a different sort of environment. So there was that. The job also allows me to travel. I'll be working out of California, and I'll also be working out of Paris in France. So, and who knows? It's a very global company. They have operations in 19 countries. So they may have me, traveling to some of these for various projects or assignments. And even in terms of the work too, it's rotational in nature. Right. So I won't just have to be doing, analytics from sun up to sundown. I can put myself in creative roles. For example, I could do leasing where I'm working with brands. I could do marketing. I could do all sorts of opportunities and see, what really and truly is like the perfect fit for me in terms of functional role within this company. And it's somewhere that I genuinely see myself growing with.
Amazing. So you started out wanting to be a hotelier. Then you want to be a doctor. Then you went to management consulting, and you ended up in real estate, retail real estate, which is amazing. So what do you envision your career to look like from here on out?
So I would say from here on out, I truly do see myself staying with this company for a long time. And so my long-term goal, I would see myself either being, an executive in a company that is at the forefront of innovation, or starting my own business at some point.
Of course, very entrepreneurial here as well. So I want to ask you a few questions about Soul Career itself.
All right.
What made you want to work with me to begin with?
All right, so I had heard a lot about Lysandra and, her path, and I saw that, she had also gone to Harvard, went into consulting, and then really found her, dream career. And I really wanted to speak with someone who had navigated such a similar path and really, taken the big leap or step, so to speak, in terms of coming off of this prescribed track and really finding what makes them tick, and then being super successful in it. So that's one thing that really drew me to Soul Career, and it's been an amazing experience.
Right. So what were some of your biggest aha moments as you worked with me?
So also my biggest aha moments, I mentioned one before, really letting go of that chasing mindset and really being able to bring that around and just bring my full self, authentic self to the table. That was definitely one of the biggest factors that helped me to land this role and to find other opportunities that also would have been, great for me. Some other really tactical things were figuring out how to redo my LinkedIn profile and to make myself more attractive to the types of people that, I were trying to seek employment from. Also being able to rework my cover letter, my pitch. My original pitch was awful. It was basically me rambling down, a laundry list of trying to tell them every single thing I've done in the past 4 years. And it just went on and on for 5+ minutes. That was a train wreck. But with Lysandra's help, I was able to really make it, short and sweet, maybe about 1 minute long, and have that actually be a genuine launching point into other conversations and helping me to, position myself in such a way that I can actually highlight the specific parts of my background that make me the right fit for this opportunity.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So I want to end with asking you, do you have any advice for someone who's feeling burnt out and unfulfilled and miserable in their current job? What should they do to break out of that?
I would say just take a step back and analyze, if you really truly enjoy what you're doing, and if you don't enjoy it, why it is that you don't enjoy it, and if this is, something that characterizes your experience, or if it's, just for a time. And then after that, when you realize, what's wrong, if it's something that you don't see changing in the foreseeable future, don't be afraid to follow your dreams, so to speak. Even though that sounds, very trite, I seriously mean that. Actually go after what makes you passionate, because one thing that I learned throughout this course is, and even just from other conversations, is you will be super successful in something that you are very passionate about, and probably more successful in that than if you try to force fit yourself into somewhere where, quite frankly, you don't belong.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much. This was amazing and enlightening and wonderful. And you're just on the very first step of your whole journey that's going to last you your entire life. So as long as you keep checking in with yourself and taking aligned action from this place of joy and what makes me light up, then you'll end up where you're supposed to be. So thank you for joining us. And if you're interested in learning more about the Soul Career course, visit our website at soulcareer.com and sign up today.
You won't regret it.